Sly, the fox, and Petty, the stork, were on visiting terms and seemed very good friends. Sly invited Petty to dinner one day, but for a joke, put nothing before her but some soup in a very shallow dish. Sly easily lapped up the soup to his heart's content. But Petty could only wet the end of her long bill in it. "I am sorry," said Sly. "The soup is probably not in your fate." "No need for apologies," said Petty. "I hope you will return this visit and come and dine with me tomorrow." Sly accepted the invitation and headed for Petty's place the next day. When they were seated at table, Sly found that the dinner was contained in a very long-necked jar with a narrow mouth, in which he could not insert his snout. As Petty finished her meal, Sly sat there starving. He indeed learnt his lesson the hard way. One bad turn deserves. Once there lived Cinderella, a teenage girl, who had lost both her parents when she was very young. She was left to the care of her stepmother and stepsisters, who were mean to her. One day the king of that country gave a ball to which all ladies of the land were invited. Though all her stepsisters went for it, Cinderella was left behind. When they were gone, Cinderella cried bitterly, but then her godmother, the good old fairy, appeared. She waved her magic wand and transformed her into a beautiful princess. The fairy found a pumpkin nearby and touched it with her wand, turning it into a grand coach. Cinderella set off, as the fairy warned her to return before midnight, else the spell will break, and her attire will transform into that of the rugs. In the ball, everyone was enchanted by her beauty. She danced with the prince merrily. But as the clock was about to strike 12, Cinderella was reminded about her pledge to the fairy, and she rushed out of the ball. In hurry, she dropped her glass slipper. The prince, surprised, noticed the glass slipper. He longed to meet her again, and felt sure that no one else in his kingdom would wear such a tiny slippers but she. After a long search, the prince finally found her, surprised but delighted at the same time. He asked her if she would marry him. Cinderella agreed at once. Cinderella was married to the prince in all grandeur, and they lived together happily ever after. Razzie, a town mouse, once visited a relative who lived in the country. For lunch, Cole, the country mouse, served wheat stalks, roots, and acorns. Razzie ate very little, only to be polite. After the meal, Cole heard the comforts of city life from Razzie. When Razzie asked Cole to go home with her to the city, she gladly agreed. They reached the mansion in which Razzie lived. Cole was on cloud 9. They found several delicacies on the table in the dining room. Just as Cole was about to grab a bite, she heard a cat mew loudly and scratch at the door. In great fear, Cole fled after telling Razzie, "You may have the luxuries that I have not, but I prefer my simple life in the country with the peace and security that go with it." Simon, a poor woodcutter, used to cut trees in woods. One day, he was cutting wood on the bank of a river. Just then, his axe fell into the river. No matter how much he tried, he could not get a hold of the axe. He sat on the bank of the river, weeping. Mercury, the goddess of water, appeared. She asked the reason of his weeping. Simon narrated the entire incident, still in tears. Then Mercury dived into the water, trying to console him. She instantly brought him a golden axe. Simon refused to take it as it did not belong to him. Mercury dived into the water and brought a silver axe. Simon did not take it either. Then she brought an iron axe, which indeed belonged to Simon. He recognized it at once and immediately accepted it. Mercury was very pleased at his honesty and rewarded Simon with the other golden and silver axes. There is no doubt that honesty is. It was an unusual day in the forest for all the animals except Paddy, the donkey, who found a lion's skin left in the forest by a hunter. He dressed himself in it and hatched a plan to amuse himself by hiding behind a bush and rushing out suddenly at whoever passed that way. And he did manage to do so, and had quite a good laugh when Sammy, the deer, and Pete, the elephant, were scared to their wits. Paddy was so pleased to see the animals running away from him that he felt he were the king of the jungle himself. In excitement, he soon let out a large bray, attracting the attention of Sly, the fox. Sly smiled to himself without a care in the world. Paddy tried to scare him away, but soon found himself in an awkward situation when Sly told him, "You gave yourself away with that silly bray. Isn't it better to be what you are instead of pretending what you aren't?" Sly, the fox, loved to eat grapes. One fine day, he was taking a stroll across the beautiful countryside. He stumbled on a grape vineyard. Sly's mouth watered as he saw the grapes hanging from the vines. Sly started to jump to get a hold of the grapes. It was high up there, and reaching it was not easy at all. He tried but failed again and again. As Sly got tired, he felt angry on the grapes and decided to walk away without tasting any of them. He thought that the grapes must be sour. But the very next day, he came across the same vineyard. To his surprise, he saw some of his friends feasting on the same grapes that he rejected the previous day. One of them looked down and smiled to him. "It's easy to despise what you cannot have." Sly's head held in shame as he went on his way. There once lived Peter, a friendly grasshopper. Peter was quite lazy, as everyone used to complain. And then there was Cox, the hard-working ant. Cox happened to be a good friend of his, and quite often they were seen together playing. But summertime was a busy time for Cox. That was the period for collecting food. It was a bright summer day and Cox was all sweaty, carrying heaps of sugar cubes to their house. Peter yawned at Cox as he walked away. Then came the winter. There was snow all over. Shivering and cold, Peter came to Cox's doorsteps, asking for food. But Cox did not have any excess food and hence could not help Peter. Peter left Cox's place sadly, starving. Peter learned the lesson that one should always plan for the future. Little, the hard-working mouse, loved everyone in the forest and was a kind-hearted soul. The lion lived in the middle of the jungle in a large den. One day in the evening, Little was in a hurry to get back home. Without knowing, he happened to cross Ridley's den as Ridley was resting outside. Ridley was half awake and grabbed Little by his paws. Pleaded for his life and promised that if Ridley let him go, he would also help him in some way. Ridley agreed. Just then, a hunter threw his net on Riley, trapping him. Feeling pity for him, Little quietly walked up to him and chewed through the net. A kindness is never wasted. Nick, a man in his 30s, and his wife Gloria had the good fortune to have a goose. They named it Pete. Surprisingly, Pete had an amazing quality of laying a golden egg every day. Both Nick and Gloria imagined that if the Pete can lay golden eggs, it might have more golden eggs inside its stomach. And Nick and Gloria decided to kill Pete in their farm itself. To their shock, upon cutting Pete open, they found that its innards were like that of any other goose. There was no gold either. They learned their lesson the hard way. Excess greed can lead to one's downfall.